Hi everyone, this is Nick Pollock here from Roar Lions Roar. While you're here, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that alert bell so you never miss any of our new content. And if you prefer to listen instead of watch, make sure you check us out on your podcast platform of choice where you can subscribe and download each new episode. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening. Go State!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Roar Lions Roar. I'm your host tonight, Matt Filipovitz, joined by my phenomenal co-host, Mr. Nick Pollock. Nick, arguably the biggest week of the Penn State sports calendar that we know of so far has arrived. Penn State, Ohio State
Yes,
week. Nick, how you doing?
until Penn State basketball is playing for a national championship, yes.
Oh, all right. I dig it. I thought you were going to say until Penn State basketball is playing like at the Palestra against Drexel, whoever that game is against this year. Nick, Ohio State week, big week on the calendar every single year. One of the final two times I think they're going to play until 2028 with the divisionless Big Ten. This is the last time the Buckeyes will be in Happy Valley until 2028. Nick, first of all, how are you? What's new?
I'm doing wonderful. I really wanted to make a point of being on the preview pod this week after dropping so many we'll talk about this on the preview points in the last episode. So glad to be here.
Well, Nick, we are excited to have you. This game, we'll dive right in, Nick. Penn State has opened at about a 3.5 point spread. It has fluctuated throughout the course of the week. I've seen it get as high as 4.5. I've heard it got down to 3 after it was confirmed that Drew Aller practiced tonight, Wednesday, as we record this. Nick, the Nittany Lions have not beaten Ohio State since 2016. Like I said, Penn State is a 3.5 point favorite. The Nittany Lions are the higher ranked team in this matchup for the first time since 2017. And all of this sets up what should be a phenomenal night game in Happy Valley in the whiteout, which instead will be an 11 a.m. kick my time, a 9 a.m. kick your time, and a noon kick Penn State time. Nick, what are your overall feelings about this game as we sit here about 2 days out?
I think the interesting thing that I've been thinking about the last couple of days is that I can't remember a time in my Penn State fandom timeline. I can't remember a time where Ohio State has come in as the team that is the desperate one. Like there have been plenty of times in this matchup where both teams have kind of been at just a pretty stable spot. Certainly been plenty of times that Penn State has been the team that's coming in desperate. And then there's been plenty of times where, Penn State is coming in the team that is quote unquote desperate, but knowing that, it's a fool's errand at that point. It's probably not going to happen anyway.
Right.
This is the first time like Ohio State, if they lose again, there's a very real chance that they are not in the college football playoff, which after
and that
all
Ryan
the
Day
money
gets fired on the short tarmac at State College Airport. By the way, Nick, I can't remember if I said Penn State was a favorite or not. Penn State is a 3.5 point dog. I think I may have said favorite. So yeah, 3.5 point dog. Apologies.
Yeah, it's just it's not a dynamic we are used to in this game. Because if Ohio State loses, like I said, very real chance they are out. And after the offseason they had of NIL portal spending, that is not going to fly with their fans at all. It's just really interesting. And obviously the 12-team playoff puts a whole different spin on all this anyway. Like Penn State is the team here that truly has nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
They have nothing to lose in, the actual sense of making the playoffs. I don't think they have nothing to lose in the grand scheme of it. Like this is a game they need to win is not fair to the situation, but this is a really good chance for James Franklin to show that his team is ready to take that next step in this new era of college football. So that's kind of the thing that's been on my mind this week is that we have never seen in this matchup, we have never seen Ohio State be on this side of the coin, which is plenty interesting, even regardless of everything else going on with both of these teams right now.
It's a real narrative shifter of a game. Like this can change the way teams view either Ryan Day or teams view James Franklin. And I feel like the last time, Nick, we really had the chance for like a narrative shifting game was probably Iowa 2021 when Penn State was on the road against what I believe at the time was an undefeated Iowa at night
Yeah.
in Kinnick Stadium and was up 2 scores at the half. We all know what happened. Clifford gets hurt. And from there, I feel like that was kind of the really the moment where people were starting to become almost insufferable about the big game James Franklin kind of thing. And I feel
Yeah.
like this is, 3 years later, there's an opportunity now to kind of shift the dynamic a little bit. And there are a couple of clouds hanging over it for both teams. First things first, the Ohio State offensive line situation is just really not in a good spot. They are down multiple guys up front. They're starting left tackle, well, Simmons, I believe his last name is. I can't remember his first
Mhm.
name. And the
An
backup is
excellent, excellent football player.
a pro, like no doubt a Sunday player. And the
Yeah.
backup, who was carted off the field in the last game, Zen Mikowski, doesn't sound like he's going to be able to give it a go. So right there, Ohio State is down two of their top linemen. On the Penn State side, Drew Aller, while he did practice this week, he's banged up. We don't know what his status officially is. Anthony Donko did practice, banged up, don't have official status just yet. And then Denai Dennis Sutton was not seen at practice. Doesn't mean he didn't practice, but when the media was there, he was not seen with the rest of the defensive ends. So there's this cloud hanging over, and I get it. It's what is it? It's kind of like week 10 at this point. It's hard to even keep track with every team having 2 bye weeks now. But I believe it's like officially week 10, game
It is
8
week
for
10.
Penn State and
Yeah.
Ohio State. Yeah, but it's game 8. You're never going to be fully healthy, but like for the injuries, I think to become as front and center as they are is kind of a bummer for the way this game is going to be viewed. So I wish everybody, Ohio State and Penn State, to get healthy as quickly as possible. I hope that, the Penn State guys, who it sounds like are going to be able to go, give it a go this week and that they're able to deliver, in a humongous environment. This game is going to be a ratings juggernaut. Everybody and their mother sounds like it's going to be, sounds like they're going to be there. Big noon, college game day. It really doesn't get
Jason Kelsey,
Jason Kelsey, not
not
me,
Donald Trump.
not Donald Trump. I think anybody else interesting that you've seen are going to show up to this game. Josh Pate, I saw was going to be there.
Pat Fryermuth will be
Pat
there.
Fryermuth is going to be there. Yeah,
Could
it's going
very
to be,
well be the game day picker. Who
could be.
knows?
I still think it's going to be the, is it Steven Nedarazik, the men's
Oh,
gymnast who's big on Dancing
is
with the Stars right now?
is he out though? Is he still alive in Dancing with the Stars?
I believe he's still alive. And Disney
Oh man, I
ESPN
don't know if he can
probably,
pull away from that. Then
that's true. But Disney ESPN do
that's
love,
intense.
yeah, that's a hell of a flight. And you can't fly into state college, never forget.
It is good synergy though. You're right.
It is good
Good
synergy.
brand synergy.
It
Yeah.
is. Nick, where do you want to start talking about this game? You want to start with Penn State's offense first, or do you want to put that on the back burner until we form our thoughts? First of all, Nick, you and I both said this to each other before we hit record. Neither of our minds are made up on how this game is
Yeah.
going to go.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk myself into this game one way or another in real time with you on this podcast, and it sounds like you're doing the same for me, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
That's right.
where do you want to start? Offense, defense, where do you want to go?
Let's start with the Ohio State offense.
Okay.
And let's just, I kind of would like to talk about it for a second without even the lens of against Penn State's defense. I just
Mhm.
kind of want to like talk for a second about what, from our outside view, what their kind of, I think issue is a strong word, but what have their holdups been? Because I think when we're assessing what Ohio State is and coming to this game, I think we really only need to look at their last two games, the Oregon and the Nebraska game. Anything else, just like Penn State, like I wouldn't go further back than the last two games for Penn State to analyze their current spot either. So I think it's
Yeah.
fair to look at these last two. Against Oregon, they put up 467 total yards. They passed for 326. They ran for 141, 4.3 yards per rush. It's fine. You can get by with that. It's not the standard you would expect for a team that has Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, though.
Also with no like real rushing threat from Will Howard all year. Like that guy ran a
Yeah.
ton with Kansas State and now he's not doing much at all. Real quick, Nick, before we dive in, I'm going to rattle
Yeah, yeah.
off just the overall season long stats for these guys just to get it out
Go
there.
for it.
Will Howard, a Pennsylvania native, who it sounds like is very excited to get to play in his childhood team stadium, which is really cool. Just like objectively, that's going to be a cool moment. Howard
Yeah.
on the year, completing 74% of his passes for 1,795 yards, 9.9 yards per attempt. That's a pretty good clip. That's about what Penn State has it as. 17 TDs to 14 interceptions. He's been sacked 5 times. On the ground, Ole Miss transfer Quinshad Judkins leads the way, 81 carries, 520 yards. That's 6.4 yards per attempt, a long of 86 and 6 scores. Trayvon Henderson, the second part of that two-headed monster, 62 carries, 449 yards, a pretty good 7.2 yards per attempt, and 4 scores on the ground. In the receiving game, I mean, it's Ohio State. It's always going to be really, really, really good players top to bottom. But it clearly is 3 guys who have separated themselves. It's Jeremiah Smith, phenomenal true freshman, 5-star, 35 catches, which ranks second on the team, but he leads the team with 623 yards and 8 touchdowns. Emeka Egbuka, who somehow is still in college, 43 catches, 546 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And then is it Cardell? Not Cardell Tate. Yeah, it is Carnell.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
Darnell Tate.
Carnell Tate, 19 catches, 334 yards, and 2 touchdowns. G. Scott, the tight end, kind of rounds out that, when they go 11 personnel, that final guy in there. And he has currently 9 catches, 85 yards, and 1 touchdown at the tight end position. Nick, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, so as you can tell by all that, like, offense overall has not been the issue. They have been able to move the ball. They were able to move the ball great against Oregon. Like I said, 467 total yards. They did struggle on third down massively, 4 of 12, which has been a constant tune for them. They have not been a good third down team, I don't believe.
Can I say something right
I'm
here?
sorry. That's wrong.
Okay.
They have been good. They're almost as good as Penn State, but the last 2 games, they have been very poor.
Especially in short yardage situations for Ohio State, which is weird because they're perfect in the red zone this year.
And those short yard situations, probably a lot to do with the turmoil going on the offensive line right now. So that's the Oregon game. Against Nebraska, only 285 total yards, 1 of 10 on third down, only 11 total first downs in the game, ran for 2.1 yards a carry. I mean, like, Nebraska is a solid defense, but Indiana just dropped, 56 on them the week before? And this is not Indiana slander. What Indiana is doing this year is so cool. I'm rooting for them so hard, even though they have every reason to be rooting so hard against Penn State in this game. But, like, it's still Indiana. And for all the great things that Cignetti can do with the schemes and whatnot, the caliber of athlete is not the same at Indiana as it is Ohio State. In year one, yeah. So I think you got to ask some very legitimate questions about what happened to the Buckeyes last week at home against Nebraska. And I think a big part of it is what's going on the left side of that line. Like you said, Simmons out for the year. Then, is it Michalski or Mikulski? Do you have any idea?
I'm guessing it's Mikulski.
Okay, yeah.
Mikulski
had to leave the game. I'm not Polish. My last name is just a Polish slur.
I know.
Mikulski had to leave the game, was carted off during that game. It sounds like he is potentially maybe going to play. It sounded like he was maybe going to play earlier in the week, but the last couple things I've read seem a little more pessimistic on that front.
Ryan Day basically said today, doesn't sound good that he's going to play.
Yeah. In the event that he doesn't play as expected, it sounds like the plan is to move Donovan Jackson, their starting left guard, out to tackle. And then Ryan Montgomery, who filled in at guard last week when they did that. But it sounds like they'll actually be getting Austin Sierreveld, I don't know how to say that name, started the first couple games of the year. It sounds like he might actually get the first crack at the left guard job in this scenario. Either way, though, you don't want 3 guards. I mean, you could really even say 4 guards. Center is very similar to a guard. You don't want 4 guys with a guard skill set on your line because there's a reason they're playing guard. Donovan Jackson is a phenomenal football player. He is also a professional player, just waiting to go to the league.
Yep.
But he doesn't have the same length that normal tackles do. He has good quickness, but he doesn't have the same type of ability out on the edge. That's why he's playing guard. I think Penn State is going to be, I do not think Denai Dennis Sutton's going to play in this game. And I think that if he was, that was really going to be a place where they were going to be able to take care of an extreme mismatch in that scenario. But I think the real key for the Penn State defensive line in this game is going to be Zane Durant getting a chance to work against a backup third string, second string, whatever it is, guard. and being able to have two guards next to each other and be able to exploit what might be slightly bigger holes than you would expect. Like, I'm sure Donovan Jackson has had plenty of reps at left tackle, especially this week, to prepare,
Mhm.
but it's not the same as prepping to do that all offseason. Like, there are
No.
going to be slip ups, there are going to be feet in the wrong spot, stuff like that, that a good defensive line like Penn State's can take advantage of.
Especially in this
So,
environment too, Nick. Like, not even
yes.
factoring in communication of it all. Like, think
Yeah.
about I mean, I would not at all be surprised, Nick, if even though it's a noon game, if the Beaver Stadium attendance record isn't broken. Like, this
Yeah.
could easily be the case. It's going to be an absolute madhouse from start to finish. I have zero doubt in my mind. Noon kick or not, like, I feel really good that the Penn State crowd is going to do everything they can. And listen, I know we're talking crowd noise about, the number 3 and 4 team in America. Like, that's the least of anybody's worries. But that
Hmm.
can make an impact. If that can even cause, one penalty or like one miscommunication throughout the course of the game, I think this game is going to be so close that that could be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
It very well could. Like, it's in a game that is this tight, it could be any single little thing on either side.
Hmm.
Um, so that's where my mind goes immediately thinking about this Ohio State offense right now. And how can it not? That's like you said, that's their key injury. That's their key bugaboo right now.
Hmm.
Jeremiah Smith, absolute stud baller. They're not going to lock him up all game. He's going to get loose for something deep at some point. It's just going to be about weathering the storm there. Emeka Ibuka, fantastic receiver, mostly does work more over the middle, which has been the type of thing that Penn State has done really well containing this
Yep.
year. So hopefully they're able to keep that up as well. And then, Quinshot Judkins, fantastic runner. Travion Henderson has always kind of been a feast or famine type guy, ton of talent in the world, but for some reason he just can't really put it together in a totally consistent way.
No.
But run
If you
defense
can't,
has been Penn
if you
State's strength this
if you
year.
can't block, what are you gonna do? You know?
Yeah. Like, Penn State on the year is allowing 3.2 yards per carry. Like, this has been their strength. And Ohio State doesn't really seem particularly interested in making the running game the focal point anyway.
No.
So
Which
it's
they'd be
like
crazy to with those receivers that we just rattled off.
yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, you're also talking about two potential top 10 rated running backs in the upcoming draft class. Like,
Hmm.
this isn't, we're not talking about slouches back there. So,
No.
um, it's there's a ton of firepower on this offense, but there's a lot of questions based on what's been going on lately there.
I mean, what good is your firepower if the walls don't last? Like, that's kind of
Yeah,
my one thing that I'm thinking about here. I don't know. Maybe it's because I've been watching. Nick, have you watched Shogun? I watched Shogun.
not
They,
yet. I
yeah,
haven't.
it's really good, and they have like a little whole to do about like, well, what does it matter if the wall falls? And that's kind of how I'm feeling about this game. Nick, you specifically called out Ohio State's struggles on specifically at the tackle position. And my mind immediately goes to one player. And you would think it's Abdul Carter, but it's not. For me, it's
Mm.
Jalen Reed. What Penn State
Mm.
has been doing with Jalen Reed, blitzing him off the edge, has been, I think, kind of a revelation this year. Like, Johnny Dixon was very good as a blitzing corner the past couple of years, but you think about where he came from, it was always kind of they were hiding him a little bit. He was off the ball a good little bit, and he would just come in and clean it up late. Reed rushes like a pass rusher. He's up there with all the guys in the defensive front, and he does a phenomenal job getting home. So
You
when
know
I
what he
think,
does? It looks really similar to the way Jair Brown rushed the passer. You can tell that they
mhm,
spent a lot of time together. The moves are very similar.
for sure, oh, yeah, that's definitely a good comparison here. But what I'm thinking about here, Nick, is I watched this game happen last year where Penn State and Ohio State, and I get its new coordinators. It's Andy Kotelnicki versus what should be Bill O'Brien, but is now weirdly Chip Kelly. That was hilarious when that happened. And I watched Ryan Day's team be so hell-bent on not changing how they called their game against Penn State, and it led to a rock fight. You look at how teams are playing against Penn State this year, and it is very clearly 3 yards get or 3 seconds get the ball out. Like Todd Blackledge, I think, did a really good job calling this out in the broadcast against Wisconsin, where the
Yep.
Wisconsin quarterback has all the time in the world, but you can tell it's been drilled in his head. 3 seconds get the ball out, and it led to an incompletion. I don't think Ryan Day but subscribes to the theory that you need to change what you're doing on offense to match up against the defense you're going against, because Ohio State has always had first round picks at receiver, a really good offensive line, and like first round picks at quarterback. Like, that's been the entire Ryan Day tenure. So
Yeah.
I'm curious if, despite these offensive line woes, Ryan Day is so stubborn that he is just, we're going to continue to do 5-step drops. We are going to make this work. This is how we called it all year. We have a $20 million roster. We're Ohio State. We're going to find a way to do it the way we want to do it. And I think that can backfire if Penn State is as aggressive as I think they can be with Jalen Reed, Abdul Carter, Smith Vilbert, Amin Vanover, Zane Durant, DDS if he goes. Bring Tony Rojas if you have to. Cam Miller's been a good blitzer when opportunity has come. And I think that's a great opportunity for Penn State to slow down the Ohio State passing attack. I think they're going to do a pretty good job, keeping Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson kind of wrapped up. Not because of those guys' talent, but just because of what Nebraska was able to do, what the Penn State defense is able to do. And then again, that offensive line for Ohio State just has me, I would be nervous if I was them. So you're going to leave it up to Will Howard, a good quarterback, but by no means the first round talent they have had for a very long time, to get the ball out accurately and on time. With those receivers he has, thankfully, it doesn't always have to be accurate, doesn't always have to be on time. Receivers are going to find a way to make a play. But if they can knock Howard off his rhythm, even like 6 plays in the game, I think that can be disastrous for the Ohio State offense. And for a Penn State defense that hasn't really been too turnover heavy, I think can lead to a couple opportunities.
Yeah, you mentioned at the top how little Howard has run this year, and we've heard quotes now that basically say they don't want him to run as much because they want him to stay healthy. Which, first of all, boy, is that a lack of endorsement for your backup options there. But it's it absolutely opens them up to the bigger possibility of turnovers because Will Howard, he is a good college quarterback. It's not the same caliber they've had.
No.
There's a reason, there's for all the talk of I can't wait to get back to Penn State this week. They didn't want me in recruiting. Well, you know what? Well, Ohio State didn't want you either when you were a recruit, and there was a reason why.
He was the backup at Kansas State for 3 years. Listen, I think it's a really cool quote. I think it's really cool that a kid has that mentality. Always bet on yourself. Good for you. You sat for 3 years at Kansas State. I get it. You developed into something really special, but I get it.
Right. And no disrespect, he's playing extremely well this year. He's playing at a really high level.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously made a couple really high profile mistakes with the taking the run just a few yards too long against Oregon, cost them a chance at the win. But, he's been playing really, really well. He should be really proud of what he's doing this year. But the style with which he's playing and not taking advantage of this thing that made him a great quarterback at Mississippi State, his ability to run.
Kansas State.
It's Kansas State. It opens up the ability for, like you said, Penn State to be able to affect the game in the backfield. And to your comment about, Ohio State not being willing to adjust their game plan, I don't really necessarily know that they should anyway. They are Ohio State. They do have all this talent. And maybe the situation on the left side of the line does bungle that a bit, but they should call the game in a way that they feel most comfortable that they can generate big plays and generate ways to win. And that typically doesn't involve 1, 2, 3, go. So I don't think it's necessarily hubris per se. I think it's more just a trusting of what they have, but I don't think you're incorrect in saying that in a matchup like this, that can come back to bite them. Then again, the game against Oregon, very different than the Nebraska game. Yeah, they lost, but it was a highly competitive game between 2 of the top 5 teams in the country. And they almost went on the road to Autzen and won. At night. So there's still a lot to like. I feel like I opened this on a very negative note for Ohio State's offense. This is an extremely good offense. And Penn State, I'm sure, is more than a little worried about what happens, the first time that somebody doesn't make an open field tackle on Travion Henderson, or the first time that Jeremiah Smith is able to lose his man deep downfield. There's a lot to worry about here, but it feels like despite what we've talked about with this Penn State defense, it's not the unit it was last year, but this feels like as good a chance as they have had to really limit what they're doing in a way that is going to complement Penn State's own offense.
Nick, I'm going back and I'm just looking through the Ohio State box score for how they got their points against Oregon. It's a
Mm.
Will Howard 1 yard run, Quinshaw Junkins 1 yard run, Emeka Igbuka 15-yard reception, Jeremiah Smith 6 yard reception, and then Jaden Fielding 40-yard field goal. That's not that explosive play that we saw kill Penn State last year with Marvin Harrison Jr. running free when Kalen King was in man coverage. It has to happen a different way. And for a Penn State defense that for
Should
all
be
of their
noted that 2 of those drives did include 35+ yard plays, though, even if
right,
they weren't on the touchdowns.
right, naturally. But with all that being said, the reason Ohio State has become so dangerous is because they're able to have these sustained drives, which can feature those 35-yard, 20-yard, 15-yard backbreaking plays. But the Penn State defense has done a very good job limiting explosive plays. So can Ohio State generate enough sustainable drives? And I'm going to make the exact same point when for the Penn State offensive portion of this podcast to really become a threat to score in every quarter? I'm not sure. That scripted drive to kick things off is going to be the most fascinating 6 minutes of football I am going to watch all season. When Ohio State has their first possession of the game, their scripted drive, what will that look like? That's what I'm dying to see. I mean, going back to Bowling Green, Illinois did the same thing. Like, UCLA moved the ball a good bit. USC's first drive was a touchdown. Wisconsin's first drive featured like a 3rd and 15
I
conversion, and
think
then
USC's second drive was a touchdown.
are you
I think they
sure?
went 3 and out in the first drive.
You're right. Apologies, second drive. But still, the early drives in these games are going to be key. So for Penn State, I need that defense to come out and get a stop on the opening drive, and if they can do that, I think they can control the tempo of this game a little bit because although Ohio State has the ability to throw, I would not be surprised if Ryan Day wants to try to get the ground game back up and running, even if that line won't necessarily allow it, because you cannot be one dimensional and beat this team. This is not the same thing that happened last year where Michigan ran the ball 48 straight times because they didn't respect the Penn State offense. Like these things play off each other, and I just don't think that's possible for this version of this Penn State team. So, Nick, give me a guy on defense that you're watching. Doesn't have to be who you think is going to have the best game, just a guy that you think is in an interesting schematic spot.
I think Tony Rojas,
Okay.
because while I don't think that Ohio State is going to use that Bowling Green, Illinois game plan, I think they're not like Ryan Day and Chip Kelly aren't stupid. They can see from the film that teams have been able to find some success throwing over the middle with those quick drops against the Penn State defense. And a lot of that, I think, has come down to Kobe King and Tony Rojas maybe not being like the most pass coverage inclined linebackers out there. Tony Rojas, I think, is better at it than Kobe King is. Kobe King, he is a true like neck brace downhill, go get the ball carrier type linebacker.
That dude is a
Um,
Mike linebacker in 1984,
yes,
1994, 2004. That dude is a Mike linebacker no matter the era.
yes. But Tony Rojas is asked to do a bit more in terms of being more versatile. So I think that he's going to have some really good opportunities to affect the passing game with some of those little drop zones in the middle of the field. To your point earlier, I think he's going to have some opportunities on the blitz. I think he's going to be really important for stopping the run. Like he I think is one of the key figures for Penn State's defense this week.
Nick, what's your plan for this game? Do you know how you're going to watch it? It's a 9 a.m. local time kick. What's your 9 a.m. plans for this game?
My son will probably wake up around 6:30 or so. We'll try to have him sleep for another hour or so maybe. Then I'm gonna go walk and get coffee. Maybe find something for breakfast. I don't have a lot of good like takeout breakfast options around here because I'm in Seattle. What that means is I don't have any good bagel options because I live in Seattle.
Hmm.
But probably about that. Get coffee, find breakfast, sit down upstairs, and turn the game on.
Do you have any idea when you go for your walk and you go
Mm.
hunting for some kind of not bagel breakfast? What are you thinking? What are you thinking you're gonna rock, apparel wise?
Tomorrow, I'm probably going to. It's pretty cold in the morning right now, so I'll probably toss a sweatshirt on with the jersey on top of it. But underneath all that, it's probably going to be a home field apparel shirt.
I know I am rocking my new home field apparel coach's jacket to the bar. It'll be its debut for the
Mm.
Penn State game. I've been wearing it to the office all week to kind of, keep myself focused on the task at hand. That's right, folks. It is the Home Field Apparel ad read. Home Field Apparel has been our sponsor since we have gone podcast only 3 years ago, and they make some of the coolest collegiate apparel in the marketplace today. They make crew necks, t-shirts, hoodies, um, corduroy hats, joggers, pretty much anything you could put on your body. And they have pretty much every school under the sun, and they are always adding more. The holidays are coming up, and if you're looking for a gift for the college sports fan in your life, you can order from Home Field Apparel and use the promo code RLR24 for 15% off your first order at checkout. Again, the promo code is RLR24, 15% off your first order. I am rocking the Take Me to Happy Valley crew neck right now. It's one of my favorite things in their collection. And again, they're really great guys, big Indiana fans. And again, they really take the time to learn about your school, dig through the archives, find unique logos, and all of the stuff they wear is of the highest quality and it's all super comfy. So 15% off your first order, promo code RLR24. Nick, I realized I didn't give a pick for my defensive guy. So
Hmm.
the guy I'm watching in an interesting schematic spot is Elliott Washington.
Hmm.
AJ Harris a little bit banged up last week. Sounds like he's going to be a go. I haven't really heard anything one way or another. That feels like more of like an under the radar storyline.
So it kind of seemed like he maybe just took a Gren shot.
Yeah, I thought so too. But Elliott Washington has quickly become cornerback three. I remember I read off the snap counts from last week against Wisconsin. It was Kimber at 48, Harris at 48, Washington at 47. He's right there behind those guys as a true sophomore. Penn State, it can't they play a ton of man. It feels to me like a bad idea to go one-on-one against Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka. That's just me. I wouldn't do it. So I think these corners are going to have a lot on their plate in terms of disguising their coverage, confusing Will Howard, and when the time comes to man up one of these NFL receivers, man up, make the stops. And Elliott Washington has just been playing with this kind of swagger all season long. That's, I think, forced them to give him a bigger role. So Washington is I think, underrated part of this defense. But for how good I think the Penn State run defense is going to be, I think there's going to be more opportunities for guys like Elliott Washington to make a splash play. So that's my pick defensively.
I like that one.
Bouncing over to the offense, Nick, how do you want to talk about this? There's the elephant in the room of if it's Aller or if it's Prabula. Do you want to say if Aller plays, here's the plan? If Prabula is the guy, here's the plan? Nick, what's your gut right now? Do we see Aller starting for Penn State on Saturday? My gut says yes.
I think yes too, but I think before I even get into that, I think we should just kind of do the rundown on the Ohio State defense quickly. Um, extremely talented
Fast,
defensive
fast,
unit.
very fast.
Very possibly the best defense in the entire country. Extremely good and well coached. Jim Knowles does an amazing job there. Extremely good defense. For all the ways that JT Tuimoloau has ruined this game for Penn State the last 2 years, like he's probably the third best defensive lineman they have after Jack Sawyer and Tyleik Williams.
Dude,
Like
but
that,
that but
this is
that Ohio State pass rush is not getting home at the rate we're used to seeing,
it's
Nick.
not.
It's
Yeah,
which is
it's not.
crazy to me. I mean, they have I think it's 20 sacks on the season through 7 games, which is still a ton. Like don't get me wrong, but wow, that was
Yeah.
surprising to me.
Still a ridiculous amount of talent, though. The kind of thing that, there's a reason Penn State, I think, is really hoping that Anthony Donka is able to go because I think Nolan Rucci's played well. I don't think that Penn State has any reservations should they have to put him out there, but Donka is just a tick better, and I think you want the absolute best you can do on your offensive line against this high-powered defensive line. Their linebacking room is just full of vacuums, man. They don't let ball carriers get by. They suck everything up in front of them. They're extremely well coached. They understand the schemes. They make solid tackles. And then on the back end, Denzel Burke, really good football player. Caleb Downs,
But Burke
arguably the
has
best
been
player.
Burke has not been good the past couple
He has
weeks.
not been good. Still a ton of talent, but yeah, he has not lived up to the talent that he has.
It's not
Still,
quite Sean Wade 2020 to
oh
2021, but
god,
it's
that
like
was brutal.
it's not great, man.
Davison Igbinosun can't stop drawing flags. Like every time the ball gets thrown that dude's way, I saw an article this week. They were doing the whole at practice this week, he was doing the whole play with oven mitts on, so he couldn't grab at guys. So that's not a great sign to see that.
It's classic drill.
Um,
But does Penn State have a
Jordan,
guy that can force him to do that? That's the big question.
right. Jordan Hancock, really good player. Caleb Downs, arguably the best player in the portal this past offseason. He's a fantastic safety for Ohio State. And then Lathan Ransom's going to be back this week, their other starting safety. So they're going to be, full power on defense. They've got everything they want out there. There's been a lot of talk that I've noticed about the seeming unrest between the way that Larry Johnson wants to rotate players and the way that Jim Knowles and Ryan Day might want to rotate players. Basically, it sounds like Larry Johnson does not want to rotate his guys, and they haven't. They have not been a heavy rotation defensive line team.
No. And they wide
again,
up really wide, like really wide,
Yeah.
dude. That C gap might be there sometimes.
I've seen things about how Ryan Day is saying we want to rotate more. I guess you can. I guess this is a week to try new things. I wouldn't think it's the time to do that, but so there's definitely, for all the talent, I think there's definitely at least a little bit of interior turmoil, it seems like, on that side, but this is a ridiculously talented defense. And for all the talk of how fast Penn State's defense is, this one is probably faster.
Yeah, this defense, I think, and again, what Jim Knowles has come in and done and fixed that defense has been very impressive. Like the fact that the Ohio State offense is not one of the top 2 units in this game says a lot about what Jim Knowles has done. So the Ohio State defense is, I mean, they're number 8 in passing D. They, 163 yards allowed. That's really good. And again, not a lot of that. They have a very high pressure rate, but they're not getting home a ton, which has been interesting. So Ohio State is a team that wants to keep things in front of them. They have done a very good job of eliminating sustained drives. You look at how Nebraska got their points. It was through explosive plays. I think Penn State is going to need to do the same thing if they have a shot to win this game. They need, I think the number, I was on the Inside the Pylon podcast a couple days ago, and the number I gave was that they need 7 explosive plays if they want to win this game. And I think Penn State defines explosive plays as 10-yard runs and 12-yard passes. I want to say that's how it works.
Might be 15.
15. So that's what they need. They need to hit 7 of those, get chunk plays, extend drives, at least get in field goal range for Ryan Barker. But again, you're not going to win this game with field goals. You got to finish it off with drives in the end zone. And that's the most important thing. So again, with how stout that Ohio State defense is, the run defense is great, the pass defense is great. When you get in the red zone, that's going to be where Andy Kotelnicki makes his hay. Like, that's where he's going to have to dial up his most absurd stuff when Penn State is on the precipice of getting in the end zone. And I don't want to go too big picture here, Nick, but I feel like I kind of led myself there indirectly. This was the game you hired Andy Kotelnicki to win. This specific game on this schedule. If 10-2 was good enough, Mike Yurcich would not have been the first coordinator fired midseason. It wasn't good enough. Andy Kotelnicki is the guy you brought in to see if he can get you to be better. He is not afraid to call any plays. Penn State, I think, historically has really puckered up in these kind of games. And there's a specific play, I think I mentioned on the podcast last time we were out here, that led me to believe that this is different now. James Franklin has evolved. And that's the double pass to Tyler Warren at USC. When you're down 2 scores and the play call is, my tight end is the center. He's going to snap it to the backup, who is going to throw it to the starter, who is going to throw into coverage to a tight end who snapped the ball. That's not a scared play call. That's a coach who wants to win. That's a coach who is going to empty the clip to find a way to win on the road. Franklin didn't do that at home, I feel like, a lot of the time. I mean, Mike Yurcich tried to make Keandre Lambert-Smith a quarterback for a while there, but that was about it. And that's what has me just excited about where I don't know what it's going to turn out to be, but I feel like it's going to be something new. I don't feel like we're going to see a scared Penn State James Franklin team in this game, which is good because you cannot, scary money don't make money. And it's not going to make you any kind of money if you play scared this week.
I think the other underlying thing behind that too is that Penn State has since 2017, Penn State has not had an offense that I think they feel like can just go and, for lack of a better term, mute your stereo.
If you have kids around, Make
Not
note.
this isn't like awful, but like they have not had an offense since 2017 that you feel like can just go drag their nuts across the field and just across the opposing defense's faces. Like this offense right now is totally different, and it's it's partially due to Jarrell, or it's partially due to Andy Kotelnicki, but I think that is what is allowing Franklin to allow more freedom with the
Mhm,
offensive side of the ball and allow more just allow more stuff like that play against USC, like going down the field and attempting to score with like 38 seconds left against West Virginia in the first half of the first game of the season, stuff
mhm.
like that. So yeah, I it's a different it's just a different feeling with the offense that I think is giving them that freedom.
Nick, the running backs in this game, Penn State's running backs, I saw a stat, Nick. Do you know the most rushing yards a Penn State rushing attack has had in this game since 2016, since the win? I think Donahue tweeted this out. So shout out to Tower
Since
Donahue.
2016, I know Saquon had a bunch, I think, in 2015. Uh, since 2016?
Let me confirm.
Don't think it was 2017. I know Saquon had a nice run at some point, but they got kind of bottled up on the ground, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
I would
it
guess
was Tower
like
Donahue who tweeted this out. So shout out to Tower Donahue. Lions 24
I would
7 podcast.
guess I feel like some team that involved Journey Brown. That's my guess.
It was not. Penn State running backs reached 75 yards in this series once since 2016, and that was in
Oof,
2022.
oof.
Ohio State has done and I get a lot of those years were pretty atrocious offensive lines, and I get that this Penn State offensive line is not elite, but if they can get the ground game going with Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, and Bo Prabula, I think it changes the dynamic of how Ryan Day has always had to play Penn State, which is intriguing to me. I
Yeah.
think Nick Singleton, I think they've held him back a little bit since Illinois. Honestly, I do. I think they're not giving him that big of a workload, even though he's
I
returning
say he's still
kicks.
returning
You're
kicks
not
though.
hurt if you're returning kicks. I don't subscribe to that theory, but I think they limited his share of carries in anticipation for this game. Because, like I
Fair.
said, if you're going to score, you got to hit home runs, and that's your home run hitter. So I think this can be a very big Nick Singleton game, a game where Andy Kotelnicki schemes him into space. Again, Ohio State lines their edge rushers up very far out wide. You factor in a decent run blocker in Drew Shelton, hopefully your best run blocker, Anthony Donko, and a motioning Vega Ioane. I think there's going to be lanes that can open up for Nick Singleton and Katron Allen to hit big holes. Nick, do you feel like this is going to be more a Singleton game, a Katron game, or kind of an even split?
So I don't think I subscribe to the idea that they've been holding Singleton back,
Okay.
just because he looks it's so clear visually that he's not the same. He doesn't seem to have the same like lateral cut ability. I think that is the thing that's holding him back. Like
Yeah.
I think more often than not, they're just playing the guy who's more equipped to help them in that moment, which I think is Katron Allen. Uh, so I don't know that I subscribe to that idea, but I do agree that I think this is the best chance for them to make an impact with the running game in, based on that stat you said, in a long time, in a
In a
really long time.
quite a long time. Do you want to talk about Drew and Bo now? We got the run game out of
Yeah.
the way. We got the
Yeah,
offensive
yeah,
line
yeah.
out of the way. Let's stop beating around the bush. Let's give the people what they came for.
Yeah.
Hope you like what you're
So
listening to. Subscribe 5 stars on your podcast platform of choice.
in the most simple terms, I personally have a hard time seeing Penn State win this game if Drew Aller is not the starting quarterback. That doesn't mean I don't think if Bo Prabula is the quarterback on Saturday, I absolutely think it is going to be a very competitive football game that Penn State still has a chance to win. It's just that with how fast this Ohio State defense is, they're if Bo is the starter, they're basically going to be able to do to Penn State what Penn State's defense has been doing to teams like Bowling Green and Illinois, the teams that have run that style of offense against them, because
West
that's basically
Virginia.
what it West Virginia. That's basically what it comes down. Like if Bo Prabula is the starter, it is an offense that looks very similar to these offensive styles that Penn State has been playing against. Because he just doesn't have the arm strength that Drew Aller has. That doesn't mean they can't be effective. That doesn't mean they can't find ways to score. That doesn't mean that they can't get really creative in the run game and find holes and open things up that way. It's just a much more narrow path to victory, I think. And in that scenario, I feel like the smart money is just betting on the team with straight up more talent. Penn State's a really talented team. It's not the same as Ohio State.
It's not a $20 million roster, man. I'll tell you that
It's
much.
not a $20 million roster. My only worry for Drew Aller playing, and the reason that I think, these practice videos are meaningless. He was always going to be out there for practice. Like, that was never in doubt. He was always going to be out there. And these practice videos, like him diving onto the mats, jogging in between drills, that is telling us nothing to do with this injury, because this injury was not something that was going to keep him off of his feet. All of these things are things that involve no lateral cutting, no quick movements, nothing that's going to cause you to turn your knee at a sharp angle. It's all straight line running, slow speed stuff. We're not learning anything from practice videos or
Speaking like a
practice
baseball
comments this
coach.
week. We're not learning anything this week from practice videos. We will find out who the quarterback is on Saturday. I think if they feel that Drew is at least agile enough to move around the pocket, I think he will play. I think they can be comfortable accepting that maybe he's not going to be able to pick up 8 yards on the ground when it's there, but I think they can at the very least say, at least he can fall. He's so big, at least he can fall forward for 3 yards.
I don't think you can run read option on 3rd and 1 with Drew.
No, but they didn't really do that anyway. So
right.
It's like you're not losing a whole lot there.
Right.
Like the thing that makes Drew Aller special is his throwing arm. That's where you want to put the game. So as long as he can move his lower half in a way that allows him to throw the football effectively and accurately, he's in there. He's playing, he's starting, he's not coming out unless it's for a bow package, near the goal line or on a key 3rd down or something like that.
I'm with you. If Penn State's going to win this game, it's going to be on the back of the former 5-star. This is the kid. This is the one that Penn State doesn't get a 5-star quarterback very often. Aller's been playing like a 5-star quarterback. Nick, I want you to guess Drew Aller's Heisman odds. They are the X best in the country right now, according to FanDuel. Not a sponsor.
If I was FanDuel setting odds, I feel like I would, going into this game, I would know that his chances would probably raise significantly. So I'm going to say he's at like tied for 8th.
He's tied for 7th with Shedeur Sanders.
That's
not by accident. I feel like people are still kind of broken on what Aller is. Aller's been playing his best football the last 2 weeks. Like, that Wisconsin game was phenomenal. USC was phenomenal. Drew Aller's a different level of quarterback right now, and he is playing at such a high level. And I get that this Ohio State test is the biggest he has maybe ever had. But if he's the guy we think he is, he's going to find a way to make these throws if he's healthy. I think Bo is going to be heavily involved in this game because you mentioned that this Ohio State defense does play very fast. They want to keep the offense on their back foot, and Bo coming in kind of flips that a little bit. It makes defenses think twice. And with what Bo put on tape with some of the throws he made last week, I think teams have to respect Bo's arm a little bit more than they did this time last week. Another important element, I think, there. I mean, there's the Tyler Warren of it all. If Aller plays, I don't think we can ever have a Tyler Warren 17 catch game ever again. I just don't think it's sustainable. So the wide receivers need to step up. Trey Wallace, Liam Clifford, Julian Fleming, and then Nick, my guy, who I think is in an interesting schematic spot, is Amari Evans. Amari Evans is the big play threat. He didn't have a single catch last week against Wisconsin, and I get a big part of that was because of the offense Bo ran. I get it. But Amari Evans can be the guy to take the top off of a defense. And if he can find an opportunity to do that, Andy Kotelnicki and Drew Aller need to be ready to take that shot. Amari has shown he can win 50-50 balls. He has shown he can be very, very efficient in space. And I think that has to be a priority. With all the attention Warren's going to get, with all the attention the running backs are going to get, I feel like Amari Evans can kind of get lost in the sauce a couple times. And I'm intrigued to see where that goes. Do you have a pass catcher who you're keeping your eye on?
I think it's Trey Wallace.
Gotta
be. They don't need these guys to be, aside from Amari Evans, like they need that over the top element from him. But everybody else, like, just just catch the football. Like,
Move
you
the
don't
sticks.
need
Move the
they
sticks.
don't yeah, they don't if you catch a ball for 8 yards and you don't turn it into a 28-yard gain, it's not the end of the world. But if you can catch a ball at 8 yards out and turn it into 10, cool. If you catch it for 8 and it only goes for 8, fine. Just don't be the thing that makes the offense stop. Like, just
It's a really good way to put it.
catch the balls that are delivered to you and don't make game-changing mistakes. Secure the ball, get what you can, get down.
The
Like,
offense
that's all they need to do.
the offense isn't built around, like, the crux of this thing is Penn State receivers winning contested catches. It's built
Right.
on Kotelnicki will scheme you open and then just
Exactly.
catch the football, and I think
Yep.
that's going to be crucial. So, Julian
Yeah. They don't need
Fleming?
guys to go make superhero efforts.
No.
Like, the whole like you said, the whole point of the offense is that you will be open.
Mhm.
Just make the play.
Yep.
That's all.
Yep. Do you have a Julian Fleming take ahead of this game?
I think it'd be really cool if he got a couple balls thrown his way, made a couple catches. It'd be super cool if he finally got his first Penn State touchdown in this game. Uh, I don't really expect anything more than the way they've been using him. Like,
Yep.
he's always going to be on the field because he's such a great blocker. He's an important, leadership piece for the team out there. I don't see any reason why he can't have a couple grabs for 20 something yards and make an impact that's mostly felt off of the stat sheet.
Yeah, I agree with that. Nick, same question as I asked you on defense. Who's your offensive guy in an interesting schematic spot that has you interested?
Hmm. Uh,
I can go
I
first
mean,
because I have one.
pro- you say yours.
Vega. Vega
Mm,
is playing first team All Big Ten caliber football right now at left guard. What they use him for, the motions, what he's been able to do as a pass blocker has been very impressive. Drew has not sacked a ton, and I know the tackles get a lot of credit for that, but at left guard, Vega's under a lot of stress, and he is very athletic. And against an Ohio State front that, again, is going to line their edge rushers out wide, is going to have some very good players on the interior of that defensive front, Vega needs to play his best game. And I think this is
mhm,
the kind of game that can secure Vega Ioane with a first team All Big Ten nod. I think it's that impactful for him against these opponents with how they use him. Like, the broadcast is going to call out Vega. I guarantee it at least 3 times with the way they line him up. There's going to be eyes on number 71, and I'm going to be watching closely to see how he handles this.
Yeah, I'm thinking Tyler Warren. Um,
Got to be first
not
overall, baby.
because yeah, not because to your point, not because he's going to go off for 17 catches or anything like that. But I think this is just going to require him playing a really complete football game. He's going to be asked to help out the offensive tackles with these stud defensive ends. I especially Tuimoloau. Like, they cannot allow JT Tuimoloau to have an impact on this game.
You're just flexing that you
They
can say his
simply
name that
cannot.
easily.
I am very proud of myself. You're right. But I think he's going to be asked to do a lot as a blocker. I think he's going to be asked to do enough as a receiver. I think we're going to see him for at least a couple plays in the Wildcat quarterback. Like I said, my prediction 3 days ago was that we're going to see a Tyler Warren pop pass on the goal line in this game. I still feel good about that. Um,
Ooh,
to Khalil Dinkins, of
to
course,
Vega? Oh,
the master of being wide the hell open in the end zone to a ridiculous degree.
I'll tell you what,
Um,
that dude loves to get the ball on fourth down in the end zone. I've never seen a
it's
player with more of his
it's
like
ridiculous.
stat sheet impact come in those situations. It's crazy.
It's ridiculous. So yeah, for me, it's Tyler Warren.
That's a really good option. I think I mean, it's Tyler Warren's offense at the end of the day. So I'm very curious to see where that goes.
Yeah.
All right, Nick. I can't wait another second. I need a game prediction from you. Penn State, 3.5 point dog. Again, I think I did say favorite at the top of the podcast. I won't edit
You just
that
said
out.
spread, I
Oh,
think.
spread. Okay, sick. Where you leaning? We've talked for 53 minutes and 33 seconds. Where did you end up on the other side of it?
I think that Drew Aller plays in this football game. I think Penn State takes the lead 24-17 late. And I think the game ends with Kobe King and Jalen Reed stuffing Quinshawn Judkins on a 4th and 1 around midfield.
Wow, very specific. I love it.
Oh, and the score to go up 24-17 is going to be the Tyler Warren pop pass to Khalil Dinkins.
What down on the goal line?
Second down.
All right. I'll tell you what, if you hit this, Nick, I'll buy a lottery ticket. I don't even know. I've really struggled with this, Nick. On the Inside the Pile One podcast, I said I had Penn State losing. At some point, and I know people hate when I say it, you got to figure it out. You got to figure it out. I get it. They're always going to be more talented. How did Tennessee beat Alabama twice in 3 years?
Yeah,
Alabama is always going to be more talented. How did Vandy beat
that happens.
Alabama? How did Arkansas beat Tennessee? I get it. You can't take any of those and apply it to any specific game. That's not how any of this works. But at the same time, I just don't think James Franklin is as bad a coach to be the guy responsible for the longest losing streak to Ohio State in program history. I just don't buy it. At
It's fair.
some point, they're going to have to find a way to get the job done. I was the guy banging the table that last year was the window, and I felt like they choked it. I think James Franklin kind of acknowledged that when he fired Mike Yurcich midseason. Again, if you think 10-2 is acceptable, you don't fire a guy midseason. You don't do it. And I think Franklin realizes that he has an opportunity with the way he's built this roster to take the top of the Big Ten. And at home, with a defense that's playing well, with a 5-star quarterback that I know is a little bit banged up, but is playing his best ball right now, and the offensive coordinator who feels a little like Joe Moorhead, I think Penn State can get the job done. So, not pretty, not fun. Penn State 20, Ohio State 15.
All right. I dig it.
That's my prediction, and I'm sticking to it. Nick, anything else you want to hit on before we send the folks off into their weekend?
I think we've touched on it all. Let's get them out of here.
Let's get. If you're traveling to the game, travel safe. Get to the stadium early. It's still going to be an absolute madhouse. Enjoy the game. If you're an Ohio State fan making the trip, enjoy the drive to State College. I'm sure the leaves and the foliage will be beautiful. So please travel safe. If you like what you heard, be sure to leave us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Be sure to leave us a like. Jump in the comments, talk about the Penn State game with other Penn State fans. And if you're an Ohio State fan, just stopping by. Hope you like what you heard. We'd love to hear your thoughts as well. We're Penn State podcasters by nature. So we'd always be happy to learn more about your Buckeyes if you are out there in the zeitgeist. Be sure to follow us on Twitter over at RLRblog. Again, we're going to be tweeting a whole bunch of dumb stuff, I'm sure, all throughout the weekend. And I'm sure we will be insufferable should Penn State pull the upset, like both Nick and I are predicting. Home Field Apparel, promo code RLR24, 15% off your first order. Thank you, as always, Home Field, for sponsoring this podcast. And for my co-host, Nick Polak, I'm Matt Popovits. Take care, everyone, and go State.
Go State.